What if I told you there was a place in Switzerland where Italian influence inspires La Dolce Vita vibes? You'd have to check it out, right? Yeah, let me get this one for the both of us. In case you missed the last episode, my name is Ashley and I am in the midst of a 6-day solo trip around Switzerland where, so far, I've enjoyed the unbelievable ridges of the Swiss Alps, explored tiny towns bursting with history, and visited the remote rolling green hills of the Northeast. After a full 2 days, I traded in the quintessential Swiss life for something with a more exotic flair, a place brimming with rustling palms, trendy piazzas, and a mild Mediterranean climate. And that is where we pick up this adventure here in the canton of Ticino. Ticino, located in southern Switzerland, is known to be the country's sunniest region, and my first morning here in Morcote certainly did not disappoint. Now, I chose to stay in Morcote for a very specific reason, and I promise we'll fully explore this village in a bit, but maybe you can guess why I'm here by looking at this map. That's right, with quite a bit of Italian blood running through my veins, I amused myself with the idea of popping over to Italy, a country I've never visited before, for a quick bite to eat. And based on this location, it only seemed appropriate to do as the locals do and grab myself a boat and indulge in a sail across Lake Lugano. Lake Lugano, bordered by Switzerland and northern Italy, is a unique and versatile destination that is somehow home to not only bustling cities, but untouched wilderness and quiet villages to boot.
I know it might seem kind of silly to rent a boat by myself, but honestly this is the best way, I think, to see this area. I'm right between Switzerland and Italy, and I can see all the little towns along the shoreline, so it's just a really cool way to experience this area.
Suppressing my appetite for pizza and pasta, I spent about 2 hours casually cruising around the lake, really intent on being in the moment. Have you ever been somewhere where you just hoped that you could always remember that exact feeling and you very consciously try to take in everything that's happening around you? This, for me, was one of those moments. With very little traffic on the water and the quiet hum of villages coming to life for the day, I casually continued my journey across the lake in the direction of Italy. The company that I rented this boat from had provided a map of the lake with markings for each port I was allowed to dock at, and so I very randomly chose Porto Ceresio as my introduction to the Italian shorefront. At least that was the plan before I found myself stopped mid-lake by Italian border agents. I mean, I think that's what they were. They never actually identified themselves, but they did have a little blue light and demanded to see my papers, which I interpreted to mean my passport. After a few tense moments of language barriers and map pointing, I was finally in the clear.
I was going to go to Porto Ceresio. Is that okay? Yes? Grazie.
Thank God I brought my passport. Let's get over to Italy. Porto Ceresio, lying on the southern edge of Lake Lugano, immediately captivated me with its colorful atmosphere and hoppin' early morning scene. I sincerely felt like I was the only tourist in town as I watched locals gather along the shorefront and lounge in nearby cafes, which, by the way, weren't even serving food yet. This is just the way of life here. Meet your friends, meet your neighbors, and hang out on the promenade. It's safe to say I was sold. At its core, Porto Ceresio emerged as a humble fishing village and grew to become a destination renowned for craftsmanship and artistry. I spent some time wandering the streets, taking in the architectural detail and intricate decor, sinking further into a state of pure relaxation. The street-side views strangely reminded me of a movie studio backlot, where everything was almost unbelievable, a little too exacting, if you will. But it was real, and in my opinion, the perfect intro into the true essence of Italian culture. what could possibly make this moment better? If the pizza parlors decided to open for breakfast. I was out of luck on that front, but to the rescue was a judgment-free gelato shop open and ready to dish out some scoops. So many people told me to try the gelato if I ever made it to Italy, and I have to say it completely lived up to the hype. Oh my God. With much of the day still ahead of me, I decided to make my way back to Switzerland, eager to explore all that Morcote had in store. With its abundant gardenscapes, meandering alleyways, and historic buildings, Morcote is a destination that felt both intimate and welcoming. The low-key vibe set the tone for a slow walk around town, allowing me to completely immerse in the detail. Standing tall as the focal point of Morcote is the Church of Santa Maria del Sasso, built in the 1400s. Taking in the labyrinth of narrow corridors, visitors can make their way up from the lake to the church in about 25 minutes, stopping along the way to explore all the nooks and crannies. At the top, you're free to roam around, soaking in the views of Lake Lugano below and peruse the beautiful cemetery nearby. You can also go into the church itself, which I completely forgot to do. What can I say? I was enamored by the entire experience up here. I guess I was a little distracted. And if I'm being completely honest, it took me a few minutes to catch my breath after the climb. On the way down, I paid a visit to the much-anticipated Scherer Gardens, a terraced landscape of beautifully curated plant life inspired by the worldly travels of tradesman Hermann Arthur Scherer between the 1930s and 50s. Today, this property is managed by the Morcote municipality and is truly a dream to stroll through. Morcote is a place that felt really under the radar. It was hard for me to imagine a more picturesque shorefront destination, and yet I was almost certain I was the only tourist in town. And for that, I was thankful to the locals who took some time to converse with me about their life in Morcote. This is what travel is all about. For a complete change of pace, and one that was a shocking departure from my morning of Zen, I paid a visit to the city of Lugano, Switzerland's third most important financial center following Geneva and Zurich. Lugano, like Porto Ceresio and Morcote, also sits along Lake Lugano, could you have guessed, and gives off a strong Mediterranean flair with a boisterous young crowd and decorative buildings. I'd say this was the Miami of the lake, a sprawling urban town with a vibrant personality. If you ever find yourself in this area unsure which city suits you, there's a convenient ferry service between many of the ports on the lake, allowing you to get a little sample of everything. Lugano itself danced to the beat of its own drum, and it was easy for me to imagine an entire weekend getaway right here. But if you know me, you can probably guess that my short time in a busy city has me seriously craving some space back out in nature. So we'll just consider this a lunch break along my lengthier route back toward the mountains. And boy, did this lunch satisfy. For weeks leading up to this trip, it was really difficult for me to imagine its lasting impact. The sights that I would see were one thing, but to completely connect with civilizations of centuries past was an unexpectedly moving experience. Nowhere was this more evident than in Val Bavona. Far from the lakeside promenades, but still in the Canton of Ticino, Bavona Valley is a landscape filled with towering vertical rock faces and dense woodland, all carved out by glaciers long ago. Perhaps most striking was the drive into the valley itself. The foreboding walls and the harsh shadows of sunset made the world feel like it was closing in around me. As I pushed further on, all evidence of modern-day society faded into the backdrop, and I found myself suddenly in the midst of ancient hamlets carefully nestled along the valley floor. This drive was the wildest step back in time I've ever experienced, and after checking into my Airbnb, which, by the way, had no electricity after dark, I quickly made my way to the nearest settlement to explore. This whole valley is best described as a bygone era when man and nature could coexist. There are 12 villages dotting the 10-kilometer stretch with homes built directly into boulders and hanging meadows emerging from the trickiest of terrain, which is impressive considering only 1.5% of the valley is considered to be suitable for cultivation. These extreme conditions, paired with natural disasters like landslides and flooding, prompted early inhabitants to cease living here by the 1500s. Today, this valley is partially occupied only during the summer months, and to my surprise, a bit into the autumn as well. Each village continues to exist off-grid, with solar panels adorning a few homes that opted for a power supply. It is a time capsule to be sure, and one that part-time residents lovingly protect. The next morning, I was up at sunrise, eager to continue my exploration of this fairy tale valley. As much as I tried, I don't think any video can quite do Bavona Valley justice, but I do think the closest I can bring you to this experience is by letting you enjoy an unnarrated stroll alongside me as I wander into the past. As my time unwinding in Ticino drew to a close, I had no idea how the next few days of my Switzerland trip would play out. But let's just say I channeled my inner James Bond in pursuit of mountain passes and epic glacial hikes. It was finally time to explore the Alps.